Alright guys, so I made a little video here for you, and I'm going to show you what bullet runout is and how it affects accuracy. This is a 7mm, 7LRM bullet here. This is my hunting rounds. And runout is really not completely understood by everyone, and in fact I didn't really understand it either when I first got into reloading and the importance of it. But when I got into competition shooting and specifically reloading for this cartridge, it kind of came to light as to why it's important. And so I wanted to discuss that with you today. What we've got here is the Hornady concentricity gauge, and this is what measures bullet runout. And I'm going to show you, I've got a couple of rounds here, 2 to be exact. I just loaded up 50 rounds. And out of the 50, I had probably 5, maybe 6 rounds that have what I consider to be unacceptable runout, and this is one of them. Most of my rounds that I loaded today fall between 2 and 4 thou of runout. Some fall within that 4, 5, and 6. And that's what I consider to be unacceptable and require some correction. So these last 2 that I saved for you are right at about 4 thousandths of runout. And what runout is it's the wobble in the bullet. Essentially, it's how this bullet is going to enter the bore. So if you imagine that my fingers are the bore, and the bullet is entering the bore as it's fired, what we want is that bullet to be completely concentric to the bore when it enters. And what runout is when the bullet's tipped, and this is an exaggeration, but when it's tipped and it enters the bore like this and then has to straighten out, one way or the other. It's tipped up when it enters the bore, or it's tipped down when it enters the bore. So let's take a look at concentricity of this particular round, and hopefully you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom in here really close, hopefully so you can see it, is I want you to watch the distance between the space of the bullet and this ball right here. As I spin the round, you should see a little bit of a wobble there with your naked eye, and the lighting's not great, I apologize. See if that helps at all. It definitely helps a little bit. But you can see a little bit of a wobble there. And this one, like I said, is about 4 thou of runout. So it's not terrible, but it's right on the margin of unacceptable for me. So let's take a look at the gauge. We're going to back out here. And now we're going to watch the gauge. I'm going to get this set. All right, so zoom back in. And now I want you to concentrate on the gauge itself. And again, I apologize, there's a little bit of a glare. This time let's concentrate on the gauge and let's watch it move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the gauge, well, it's pretty much set almost right at 0. So right there is the low spot. And if you watch the gauge, let's set it perfectly here. If you watch the gauge as we spin the cartridge, it'll climb up. So that one's about 3 thousandths out. And so what I like to do is I like to get it between 1 and 2 thousandths is my acceptable margin. So we're going to spin this back down to the low spot, and now I'm going to apply a correction here. Sorry for the bump in the camera. And I'm just spinning this dial up. Now I'm backing it back out, and we're going to recheck. Much more acceptable. So let's reset our gauge to 0, and now you can see we've got about 1.5 thou of runout in that round, and that one's corrected and ready to go. Alright, so let's check the other one here, and we'll do that one as well. Alright, we've got another round here that we're going to check the runout on. Get the cartridge mounted up. And let's zoom in so you can take a look here. tile onto the bullet. Alright, so this one's got quite a bit of run out. We're going to set our dial to 0. And you can see almost 5 thou of run out in this round. So let's pull the ball bearing away from the round, and let's again focus on the space between the bullet and this ball here. And I want you to see if you can actually visually observe the wobble in that bullet. See that wobble? Okay. So now let's back out. We're going to go to the low side. We're going to make our correction. Back it out. And let's check it again. That's pretty good. We went from 5 thou to about 1 thou. A little less even. So you can see we've taken this round and we've now made it much more concentric to the barrel. And really honestly, why is that important? Well, think of it in terms like this. You go to the range, you shoot, your 3, 4, or 5 shot group, and you get those, let's say it's a 4-shot group, and you get 3 that are clustered right together, a nice little, clover leaf, half-inch group, and you've got that one flyer that's, say a half-inch or an inch away from the rest of the group. 9 times out of 10, that flyer is going to be caused by either improper neck tension or bullet run out. And ultimately, if you think of it in terms of a hunting situation, if you've got that mule deer, that 200-inch mule deer, once in a lifetime buck at 550, 600 yards, and you're off, say, a half-inch or an inch at 100 yards, that's going to be compounded at 600 yards. That's going to put you off 6 to 8 inches, and that could result in a marginal hit, a gut shot, or a wound, or even a total miss. And really, honestly, is it worth it to spend $100 on a concentricity tool or a concentricity gauge to make sure that your run out is minimal as possible? Yeah, I think so, in my opinion. Especially if I shoot this gun at really long ranges, and if I'm taking a 700 or 800 yard shot, I want to make sure that I'm reducing everything I can to make this bullet as accurate as it possibly can be coming out of my gun. And if that means spending a little extra money to get the run out reduced, then it's well worth it. So again, that run out is the amount of tilt that bullet's going to have as it enters the bore, and as much as you can reduce that. I showed you a tip earlier about spinning the bullet in your seating die as you're setting it, so that it's hitting evenly on the ogive of the bullet, is one way to reduce run out. And in using those techniques, I usually get between, like I said, 2 and 4 thou of run out. One of my other guns, it's, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the dies or the bullets or what, but usually it's between 1 and 2 thou, and I don't even have to chuck run out on those rounds. The 7 LRM is a little bit different. Like I said, occasionally I'll get those 4 and 5 thou run outs, but I hardly ever get any over 5 thou of run out. So I hope this has helped you guys. I hope it explained it to you a little bit. You can get these gauges just about anywhere. I got this one on Amazon. They're right about $100, and they're well worth it. You don't have to buy anything extra. They'll work for every round that you can come up with. It's completely adjustable here to set the depth of the cartridge. So anyway, if you guys have any questions, give me a message. I hope this helped you.